Alabama officially names their QB1, but was it the right choice? Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. We're free and available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, as well, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $20 off your first purchase. Our buddy Chris Marler hopping in with us. Of course, you know him from Locked On Gamecocks. Also, been covering the SEC a long time. Was part of Fourth and Wrong. What were all your podcasts you've been doing? I mean, you've got a million of them. I'm giving
this every time.
I'm giving the background because you also have done a Bama podcast and all this. You've been covering the SEC for long enough, so you are one of the great people to bring in here as we want to discuss the big news coming out on Monday evening, Marler, as Pete Nakos, among others, reporting Ty Simpson officially named the Alabama starting quarterback for the 2025 season. Now, it's not a huge surprise because we all kind of – look, I could have told you this back in February. I mean, it felt like he was the guy. He sat and waited his turn. Look, Keelon Russell, the five-star recruit coming in, very highly touted. And then, throughout this whole battle, I was told Austin Mack, the transfer from Washington that was with Keelon DeBoer, was a Keelon DeBoer recruit, really pushed those guys throughout spring and into the summer. So not a huge surprise, not a big shocker, but I do float the question out there, is it the right decision? Because in this day and age, and Ty Simpson's got a little bit of mobility, but I think a lot of Bama fans, Marler, were enamored with the dual threat ability of Keelon Russell and looking at his numbers and what he did in high school. But where do you come down on it?
Was Keelon Russell a dual threat?
Well, his running ability, at least the highlights I saw was, he had running ability, but
he's a good athlete for sure. I think though, originally, I'm almost positive Ty Simpson was a dual threat type quarterback out of high school. We've seen him run a little bit in his very limited playing time before. I think that my stance on this hasn't changed since day one, and that is this: that I thought Keelon Russell would come in and win playing time, not necessarily the starting job, but playing time. But the more it went on, the more it was like Ty Simpson. If you're a Bama fan, what you want out of this, you want it to be 2020 all over again. And what I mean by that is, dude, 2020, you're coming off Jalen Hurts, you're coming off Tua Tagovailoa, and then you're going into a year where Mac Jones is your projected starter, but Bryce Young comes in. And at the time, Bryce Young was the highest ranked recruit in the history of the program, number one overall player in the country, all that kind of stuff. Mac Jones, just a three-star recruit, but he'd been there for 3 years or so and had done, he was on some of those teams and he had some of the tools. He ends up leading them to a national championship. You're hoping that's what you have this year. You're hoping that Ty Simpson going into year 4 or whatever in college has the maturity to make all the throws, also all the throws he shouldn't make, and be a guy that's going to hold off what is now the highest ranked recruit in the history of that program, Keelon Russell. Keelon Russell will have packages. He will have packages for him. The Austin Mack part is interesting only because the fact that when Julian Sayin was on campus and Saban retired, he leaves for Ohio State and he brings in Austin Mack and kind of allows that to happen. Keelon DeBoer allows Julian Sayin as one of the very highly ranked recruits. But I will say this, man, Keelon Russell, the concern you have to have if you're a Bama fan, that is listen, I'm not talking about Julio, not Bryce Young, not Tua, not any of the defensive linemen or offensive linemen. This is the highest ranked recruit in the history of that program. And you're now hoping that this guy is going to stay even without playing time. And in a day and age of NIL and tampering, that's a lot to assume you're going to be able to do.
Yeah, it's the gamble. And again, I think that's probably why, if we're reading between the lines, why they didn't announce a starter, back in the spring. Because I think a lot of I think there's gamesmanship to it. I think Eli Drinkwitz maybe did that. He knew he was bringing in Bo Perbula, but he's still hyping up Sam Horn, going, "Oh, this is really close." Like, I think it's what you do to, especially in that spring portal, with that spring portal potentially, losing somebody. We saw Julian Sayans spent not even a week on campus, whatever it was, but like he was in Alabama, coming to Alabama and all this. Like, it could have been that with Keelon Russell. He could have come to Alabama in the spring and then decided, you know what, Ty Simpson's the guy. I'm out of here. I'm going elsewhere. So, just to clear it up, of course, Keelon Russell, 5-star recruit, number 2 overall prospect. They called him the number 3 dual threat quarterback on some ranking. And then another one I'm reading is Ty Simpson was the number 2 dual threat quarterback. So Take that for what you will. They both have running ability.
Right. Yeah, and I think the thing is, like with Simpson, like going into this season, especially if you're Kalen DeBoer, you got to go into a situation where you have Ryan Grubb. I don't think there's a throw on the field Keelon Russell can't make. It's also very difficult to win as a true freshman at that position in any sort of college football, but especially in this league. We have not seen it done a whole bunch, right? Like, there are examples, but it's not something we see done a ton. DJ Lagway is a guy that has all the potential in the world, and people love to talk about what he's going to be this year. Well, I mean, last year's a true freshman. You just look at the stats and stuff like that from it, like what he had around him. Bama probably has a little bit more talent around him, but like, I think when you're going into a season where you have, Florida State should be better. You got Wisconsin at home. You're playing 10 games against Power 4 opponents. You got Georgia on the road. By the way, that's all in the first month of the season. Yeah, man, like you probably want to have a guy that's been there for a couple of years and understands from a maturity standpoint of what he can do and what he doesn't want to do to limit the offense. And I think the other part, too, is if you're excited about it is like I think that a lot of Bama fans just kind of I don't want to say – so I'm just going to put this. Like, their assumption is, we're going to be better at quarterback than we were a year ago because of the disdain that they had for Jalen Milroe towards the end of his career. That's a guy that was really great for a long time. But, man, his last 3 games, I think he had 10 or 11 total turnovers just in his last 3 games of his career. So you have to think that gets better, at least, with Ty Simpson. And the biggest thing, too, with Ryan Grubb, I think you now have a quarterback that can do all the things that Grubb and DeBoer want to do in that offense. It might not have a Michael Penix type arm, but he can do all the things, the intermediate routes and the accuracy and all this stuff that Jalen Milroe sometimes struggled with.
Do you wish Ty Simpson had maybe gotten a little bit more of an opportunity? And it's funny, as I was going back through the games and remembering, I forgot about that stupid USF game in 2023 at USF. They start Tyler Buckner. It was an absolute debacle. Saban's looking for anything they could do for a spark. Ty Simpson did get an opportunity, 5 of 9 for 73 yards. Did have a rushing touchdown, but like I completely forgot about that game.
Yeah, I wish I did too, man. It was one of the least fun games I've ever watched in the history of college football. Like here's the other thing too. Horrible torrential downpour. Like Bama looked awful, right? I think it's the week after the Texas loss. They looked awful. And then it's a torrential downpour. So you have like a 45-minute delay. When they came back, none of the cameras worked. So you had the all 22 version of the show. And then RG3 was on the call. And it was like, how much worse can this – if you threw Sam Acho and Gary Danielson in my living room, it wouldn't have been worse. It was awful. It was awful.
Pun City for
dude,
RG3.
It's just, when it rains, it pours. Alabama scores. You're like, I got it. Yeah, it's a hurricane. We got it. No, but I think that I think that what that specific situation was that they were showing that Jalen Milroe was the guy. And it by all means turned around the very next week against Ole Miss, and they played better the rest of the year. I will say last year there were times where I was like, the leash maybe should have been a little bit shorter with Milroe and like the Oklahoma game, like you try to figure out something. But I will also go to my grave saying that Milroe was one of the most underrated Bama quarterbacks they've ever had. He was good a lot in 2023. And he's also the only reason you were 2-0 against Georgia. So the anger, I get it, because you lost to Vanderbilt, you lost to Oklahoma and all that kind of stuff. Also, the only reason that you have that streak against Georgia still going. So
I will. What's interesting? By the way, I quick note on that USF game. I saw Byron Brown is still the quarterback at USF, and week 2 they go to Florida. They go to Gainesville. If Byron Brown's going to be this like super senior or whatever,
listen. If you go back and rewatch the South Florida game last year, because that game was 21-16 against South Florida in Tuscaloosa. I think it was the game they dedicated the field to Saban, but it was 21-16 in the fourth quarter with under 7 minutes to go, and I think Bama ended up scoring 3 touchdowns in the last 7 minutes. They won 42-16. If you objectively watch that game, if Byron Brown hits 2 of the deep balls they have, Alabama probably loses that game. Like they should have been down for most of that game. It was tough to watch.
Yeah, watch out, Billy Napier. You're on USF alert in week 2. But go back to the question. I mean, I it's a little crazy to think Ty Simpson's been at Alabama. This is going in his 4th year. He's not thrown a touchdown pass. Like you would think that's wild. You would think somewhere in mop-up duty he would have thrown a touchdown pass at some point. He does have 2 rushing touchdowns, but not a passing touchdown.
I'll give you a hot take right now. I bet he gets one.
Week 1 at Florida State?
I think week 1. I do think it'll be very interesting, though, to see what this offense does. Because last year from the opener, and maybe my memory's a little bit cloudy on this one as now, but I remember you had a lot of deep balls. And what Milroe was really, really good at was the deep ball. He was pretty accurate at the deep ball and throw the ball downfield. Now, intermediate stuff, no, not as much. But I wonder if you're going to see an offense that goes into the season, especially in game 1, and it's much more 1st and 10, 8-yard gain. 1st or 2nd and 2, run the football, but like not so much what's the best way to put it? Like the only thing I can think of is bend but don't break, but for offense. Like it not as much of a high risk, high reward type situation where you're throwing the ball deep a ton like they did with Milroe.
Yeah, I again, the comparisons I've made is Mac Jones, the guy who sat and waited his turn. But I've had people tell me Mac Jones was incredible. Like, don't discount how awesome he was, and don't put that pressure on Ty Simpson. So I've said, okay, maybe he's Matt Flynn. Maybe like just, again, the guy who sat, waited his turn, and was very good. I don't think we call Matt Flynn one of the greatest quarterbacks in the SEC the last 20 years, but he had an awesome season and it led to a championship. Mac Jones had a stellar season that led to a championship. Wow. So whatever bar you want to put it at, we'll see what Ty Simpson is. But you agree with me, right decision. This is the guy to lead Alabama, at least to start the year.
I do. And I think now you just figure out a way to and I think also real quick on this, I think the concern, like I said, is how do you keep this kid in the fold? Keep in mind too, with Keelon Russell, I mean, this sucks to talk about, but like his sister tragically passed away. I think it's his twin in the offseason. Like that kid needs to feel at home. And there's a lot of stuff working against Alabama, optically speaking, of him staying on there. You just need to figure out a way to keep him involved and make sure that he feels like he is the future. Because I think he will be the future of that program. And he, dude, if you're ahead of Bryce, if you're ahead of Tua, you're ahead of Julio, like the ceiling has to be through the roof with that guy.
We'll revisit later in the show some of my conversation with Ty Simpson from a couple weeks ago at the Manning Pass Academy. More Locked On SEC when we return. We'll touch on the AP preseason poll that's out. Hey, but first, we have all been there logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, and then you lose your spot, you lose your tickets, and you're SOL. It is about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping, and that's where Game Time comes in. And Marler, I know you've been out shopping for tickets or whatever, and it's like it's hard. Sometimes they start adding all these fees and all that. Let Game Time make you getting tickets to concerts or sporting events easier than ever. Prices actually drop the closer you get to showtime, so you can even save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Check out Game Time. Again, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. If you're worried about what happens if your plans change, they got the Game Time guarantee that has your back with cancellation protection and more. We were up in Fenway Park a couple weeks ago in Boston and bought tickets to the Red Sox game on the Game Time app, and so it's that easy to do. I love the seat views. You get to see literally what your seat looks like before you even buy the tickets. So Take the guesswork out of buying tickets for concerts or sporting events with GameTime. You download the GameTime app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege. Again, if you've never used them before, use that code LOCKEDONCollege. It'll get you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Continue on here, Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy here with you, and our buddy Chris Marler joining us as well. Marler, we got, a week ago we got the coaches poll. This week we got the AP preseason poll. And not a whole lot of difference as we take a look at it here, but it is the Texas Longhorns preseason number one in both polls. As I joked with a buddy today, I said, well, I guess they can only go down from here. I mean, it's a lot of pressure for Steve Sarkisian and Texas to start number one, but a little flipperoo here. They put Penn State preseason number 2, Ohio State number 3, Clemson number 4, and Georgia number 5. Not a whole lot of shockers there. The rest of the SEC, it's Bama 8, LSU 9, South Carolina 13, Florida 15, Oklahoma 18, Texas A&M 19, Ole Miss 21, and Tennessee 24. Marla, that's 10 SEC teams ranked in the preseason AP polls. So what's your initial reaction?
Yeah, but Gordy, come on. Listen, it's SEC bias, right? It's all those guys, all the media people that sat there in the offseason poking fun at this conference. Brett McMurphy, Nicole Auerbach, the people that have the votes. I know McMurphy has a vote in this, and I haven't seen his top 25, but all those people that sat there and talked so much trash about the SEC and how they were overrated. And then all of a sudden, what do you know? The 62 voters you have across the country that get to vote in this, which, by the way, Gordy, I don't know if you've heard of this or not, but not all of them based in the Southeast. So it's not like you're getting a bunch of home cooking there. But they end up going in and they end up voting all these people in, and it's not even remotely close to, like, it's more than last year. Like last year you had a total, I believe of what do you call it? 20, or no, sorry, you had 9 in the top 25. Now you have 10. So it's like, what are we talking about? It's kind of crazy to me. Anyway, I think the thing that it stood out the most to me, the thing that surprised them or that stood out the most, Bama and LSU kind of attached at the hip, and we've seen that across a lot of things. I think that's probably the smart part of it, which I think that is those two teams seem very, very similar, and also
I wish they didn't. I wish they didn't play each other. Like that's what kind of like because Texas has to play in Georgia. They don't play LSU. Georgia and LSU don't play each other. Bama and Georgia do. But I just this is where the conference it becomes tough because the 4 best teams from the conference in the SEC, a lot of them are playing each other. Whereas in the Big Ten, you've got teams that are just completely avoiding one another altogether. I mean, it's nuts.
Well, Texas doesn't have to play Bama this year, which is good, but they do play Florida. So I mean, dude, South Carolina's got 6 of their 12 games against top 25 teams, like, and that's not including Mizzou. How about the fact that let's get fired up here for a second because this was kind of crazy to me. As much as we talked about SEC bias, how about Missouri going back-to-back 10-win seasons, having one of the easiest schedules to start the year strictly because they don't have to leave home? And then who they have on the schedule outside of South Carolina and I guess Kansas. But, like, you have them unranked. That's the first time in 41 years you have had a team from the SEC that had back-to-back 10-win seasons, and all of a sudden they're not even ranked in the top 25 the year after. It's only the 4th time it's happened last decade. The other thing I think is just unbelievably stupid is Penn State being ahead of Ohio State. I think Penn State's going to be good. The floor is 10 wins. The ceiling is 11. It's the same every year. I've made this comment over and over and again. Penn State is Jurassic Park. Like they are, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what happened. We messed around with dinosaurs on this private island. They attacked us. No way. I'm shocked. I'll go watch it. But like Penn State, you're a top 5 team every single year. What do you know? You lost Ohio State. The fact that the voters, and I know you have to vote, you and I disagree on this a little bit. You have to vote for this year. Right. So it's like, I get that part. And on paper, they should be good. They got a ton coming back. And they got Jim Knowles on as the defensive coordinator. They could be better there. But, dude, you're telling me you're going to put them, if you're a voter, you're putting them ahead of Ohio State, who, by the way, won the national championship 9 months ago, hasn't lost or even played a game since that happened. and is also 10-1 in their last 11 games against Penn State. Like, that is, what are we doing? Like what are we doing? If I cannot wrap my head around that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Back to the Mizzou thing real quick. I think part of that is, and look, I've been studying the depth charts and the transfer portal, and I know what Mizzou's got in. But I would say go ask an average, just AP voter. Name 5 Mizzou players.
They don't know it.
They don't know. That's
their job.
Yeah,
that's their job.
I get it, but they're gonna go. Oh, they lost the stud wide receivers. Oh yeah, the Marcus Carroll and the backfield's gone. You know, I mean, like I think those defensive players are gone. You know, they would just start running down the list and going.
Cook and his 12 touchdowns.
Yeah, Brady Cook's gone at quarterback. So you know, it's Bo Prabula. Ahmad Hardy, I think, is going to be a name we're going to get to know very quickly in the backfield. And then how about Drink the other day touting his one of his freshman running back coming in saying he's going to be really good in Marquise Davis. So
Missouri, I brought this up at media days before my blunder of a joke about Celsius, Eli Drinkwitz, that fell flatter than 3-day-old Coke, man.
I didn't hear that.
I got to go back and watch that. To be clear, it was awful. I was so embarrassed. But the question I was asking was like, you guys have finished in the top 4. You had a running back finish top 4 in 4 of the 5 years you've been there in the SEC. I think they had the SEC overall leader 2 of those years, Schrader and then and Beatty, and they each finished at number 1 in the SEC. You're bringing in a kid that ran for 1,400 yards behind an offensive line that's supposed to be pretty good, right? Like you also bring in Kevin Coleman from Mississippi State. Mississippi State, I mean, he is the returning leader in the SEC for receptions and receiving yards. Like not Aaron Anderson from LSU, not Ryan Williams, not Cam Coleman. Like that's who it is. And so, and then by the way, you landed a top 7 portal class where you went and got a former 5-star edge rusher from Georgia. Like I just, and here's the biggest thing too about Mizzou. Like if you were to hang the argument on, well, they lost Brady Cook and they lost all this like veteran production or veteran experience and leadership, that's fine. But the issue, and we all know this to be true, even though we don't have factual evidence of it, and you just pointed out, it's that people don't care enough about Mizzou to do their homework on Mizzou. So we just continue to throw them in. And I expected from SEC fans, Gordy, they're not even part of the SEC. They're in the Midwest. This is stupid. But from a national standpoint, for them to not get their credit, back-to-back 10-win seasons in the SEC, and they're not in the top 25. Tennessee has 49% of their roster, not starters, their roster, freshmen or redshirt freshmen, and they're 24th. Like, I think Tennessee will be good. But it kind of bothers me. There's so much disrespect for a Mizzou program that just seems that just seems to be where they live. It's just like, I don't know what else they can do.
Well, Zion Young, I think, is going to make a name for himself, very quickly this year at the edge rusher. Chris McClellan, we know how good he is on that D-line. Mm-hmm. I was shocked. I think I forgot about this, that Jalen Catalon is there. We had Jalen Catalon on Locked On SEC 3 years ago when he was at Arkansas. Then he went to Texas. Now he's at Mizzou, and he's had injuries out the wazoo.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if he's healthy, that's a really good free safety to have there in the secondary. So I'm with you. I think it's disrespectful. I think Eli Drinkwitz is going to use this to motivate his guys. Schedule sets up very well for them. There's no reason why they can't go 10-2.
And here's the other last part. I don't mean to interrupt you, but of course I do because I'm an idiot and I talk too much. But here's the thing too, Gordy. You know this as well as I do. One of the reasons why it's also just incredibly stupid. Look at the schedule. How long do you think it's still ranked? Like how long into the season? It's week 2 at the most. Like they're going to be ranked after week 2 and they beat Kansas. So it's like, what are we like? What? It's just so stupid.
Wasn't Jalen Daniels, isn't he back for like an 18th year at Kansas? So
yeah, him and Jalen Catalon actually both were part of the 2011 recruiting class.
I thought we were done with COVID kids, but it's nuts. So I saw John Emery, LSU's former running back, is at UTSA now, and I'm like, good Lord! Like, at what point do we move on and start getting a job? Because
I remember Arian Smith, the kid from Georgia. I will never forget making like, here's my breakout players for 2019, and it's like Arian Smith, and it's like now 2024 he's still in there. So yeah, man, I'm ready for that era to be done.
Real quick, because we do have a lot of Texas fans that watch our show, and I see them in the comments all the time. I mean, just thought on Texas being number one. I talked to somebody earlier yesterday about this. I said, switch quarterbacks. Say Julian Sayin is at Texas and Arch is at Ohio State. Isn't Ohio State preseason number one?
Julian Sayin is one of the highest ranked recruits at that position. Like, Julian Sayin was like the third best player in the country. That's what makes what you're saying even more ridiculous. Because yes, that's true, but like, I tell you what, there's a massive part of me that wants to get under the skin of Texas fans because it's not hard to do, and nobody loves Texas or being from Texas and telling you about Texas more than people from Texas. Like, we get it. It doesn't have to be your whole personality. But here's the other part about Texas too. I don't know how good the offense is going to be. You could be worried, okay? And hear me out, Texas fans, before you start typing away angrily. You lost to all of your starting receivers, I believe, and tight end, right? You lost your starting left tackle, and I believe he wasn't the only one off the offensive line. You're starting a new quarterback, which, by the way, Ewers, I think that Arch can be great, but Ewers was the number one overall player in the country coming out of high school too. So, like, there's a lot of question marks about this offense. Here's the thing. The defense might not – if you can score 14, I don't know if they're going to lose a game because the defense is going to be so good that I don't know if they're going to – like, they could go 12-0 even with that Georgia game on the schedule because that defense is going to be – I think it's the best linebacking core in the country. I think it's the best defensive backfield in the country. They got some answers up front, or they're going to have to – or questions up front they're going to have to answer in the defensive line. But other than that, man, like, it is a scary – good defense that comes back this year, and that back seven especially. I tell me a time that a Sark offense hasn't been able to average 14 points a game.
Yeah, I think
I see a lot of losses on that schedule.
I think we didn't talk enough about how dominant that defense was last year for Texas. They didn't let you score. Like, as Georgia was not looking like the traditional Georgia defenses, that Texas defense was, I mean, they were for a good bit of the season leading the country in least amount of points allowed. So, we joked about it, said, oh, you played the softer part of the SEC schedule and all that. You still got to go do it. You still got to go stop the other team from scoring. And they did. I do think health is big. If you lose Anthony Hill or Colin Simmons for any stretch, that could certainly hurt that defense. But I've been watching highlights of Malik Muhammad locking dudes down. We know how good Michael Taff is. So it's good secondary. And again, preseason number one, I just joke saying there's nowhere to go but down. If you're Texas, you're going to sit at one. The minute you lose, you're going to fall. So, the hope is
shocking to somebody that's covered the sport for a while, because it was shocking to me. This is the first time in program history they're preseason number one.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Hopefully Arch didn't make any Venmo gambling bets here when he was younger, because John Mateer and Oklahoma dealing with that one. Marler, always appreciate the time, man. Thanks for hopping on.
Thanks, brother.
All right, when we return here on Locked On SEC, we will revisit our interview with Ty Simpson from the Manning Passing Academy just a couple weeks ago. That's coming your way next. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And before we call it a show today, I did want to revisit our interview with Ty Simpson, as he's being officially named the Alabama QB1 starter. Caught up with him a couple weeks ago at the Manning Passing Academy. Figured we'd revisit a little bit of that interview now that he is officially QB1 at Bama. Catching up with Ty Simpson, and what's this offseason been like for you, man? I'm sure it's been pretty wild.
Yeah, it's been hard for sure. Last year left a bad taste in our mouths, and we're just excited to get out there and try it again. We all got a chip on our shoulder. We feel like this has been one of the hardest off seasons, but also the best off seasons out of my 4 years at the University of Alabama.
Obviously, quarterback battle rages on, but you feel pretty good about your position. What are the things you've worked on individually in your game this offseason?
I just worked on my leadership, being the oldest guy in the room, and learning from the guys before me like Jalen and Bryce, and just kind of, putting that in Keelon and Austin's ear. Just trying to be the best guy I can be, and making sure I go 1-0, because if I don't go 1-0, I can't go 2-0. So I'm just making sure that I can be the best guy I can be, and doing whatever I can to make sure our team wins.
been a lot of talk about Coach Grubb coming in this offseason. What do you like about him so far and the wrinkles he's bringing to that offense?
Yeah, Coach Grubb's the man. He's super smart, brought a lot of stuff from the NFL and just, his intensity every day. He's the same guy every day, and that's what he challenges us quarterbacks to be. No highs and no lows, but understand that, you need to be the same guy and come out, and be metal. And what he means by that, just, your breaking point and making sure that, you come out every day and be the strongest guy. So I'm very excited to see what we do during the season and just, his intensity that he brings each and every week.
Some good weapons back at wide receiver. Obviously, Ryan Williams took the league by storm last year, and I know he's excited to take his game to the next level. But what have you seen out of this receiving corps so far?
Yeah, I think it's by far one of the best receiving corps in the nation, if not the best. We got Ryan coming back, who is hungrier, healthier, and honestly older. And then you got one of my good friends from high school, Isaiah Horton, who transferred in from Miami, who I have a great connection with. And then you have guys returning like Jeremy Bernard, who was a key player for us last year. And then you have new guys who are emerging like Rico Scott, Derek Meadows, and Latsier Brooks, who are very dynamic. We can put them anywhere. So Coach Shep does a great job of those guys of getting them dialed in, and I'm very looking forward to seeing what they do during the season, because they've progressed so much, even from the first time that we got our hands on them in January.
How did the offensive line look for you? Some leaders coming back on that side. It looks like that'll be a true strength for you guys.
Yeah, no doubt. We're going to be able to run the ball, and then being able to run the ball is going to help us be able to pass the ball. You got Caden Proctor, the left tackle, who is a 3-year starter, who is just bigger, stronger, more mature now, understands his role. You got an All-American like Parker Brailsford coming back, who this is his second year in the SEC, and he's a big-time player for us. And you got Jaden Roberts at the right guard, and then Cam Dewberry, Gino, and then Wilkin Formby and Olas. Those guys, getting in and out of the lineup, man. It's a good group of guys. Not only a good group, but they're also very close knit, and that's what makes it so good.
All right, that again was Ty Simpson. Appreciate him for taking some time to chat with us at the Manning Passing Academy a couple weeks ago. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith, he's got all the latest rumors, portal signings, entries, all that kind of stuff. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe right now. We're getting ever so closer in that 10,000 mark, and made a bet with some of the folks here that we would hit it before the start of football season. So give us a little like and subscribe to us right there on YouTube. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.